Okay. Go ahead and share the screen here. Okay. Thanks everybody for joining tonight. We're really excited to get together as a group. This is actually the first time that we've done it in this kind of extended capacity. I think everybody knows Ford is a new and growing organization. We've only been around 3 years now, which is crazy because that seems to go by pretty quickly. But we've been growing and adapting every time we come to this point every year. This is the first year that we've had this large of an audience for our end of year meeting. In the past, it's been mostly board members and a couple of key volunteers outside of the board. And that's kind of the capacity we had in the past as an organization. This year we had a much larger group that had been like active and following us throughout the year. So it's exciting to be able to come together, kind of share and celebrate what we've done over the last year, start to look ahead a little bit. And we're going to start that process with our board elections tonight. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. New things with the board elections. This is the first year that we have created the position of members within the organization. And to be a member, we need to have everybody listed as an active volunteer and also a due paying member. With I think we have a $12 due annual due to do that. So, that information has gone out and the election is underway. It started up last night at 7:30. We'll close that tonight around 7:30 in our agenda tonight after we get through the recap. But it's exciting. We've never had membership informing a board on our organization before. It's the first time we were having a competitive board election. In the past, we've always brought in and appointed people as they've been interacting with the organization and as we've kind of felt comfortable as a leadership group bringing on new people. So this is an exciting new next step for us tonight. Just to give a little bit of the lay of the land that we'll have here. We'll go through a recap of 2025, looking at different aspects of the organization. Then we will finish up our board elections. And if anybody needs any final assistance, that will have about 5 minutes to try to get everybody final assistance. And also during that time, we will close the elections and view the election results with everybody here. And then we will close the annual meeting as an official step and begin a new board member meeting. It'll be our first meeting of the new year. Yeah, Matt Byers.
Yeah, thanks, PJ. I wanted to take just a moment to let everybody know about how the balloting is working, because there seems to be some confusion both online and text messages I'm answering. So everybody who's a member should have gotten an email over the past day or so. Check for your email. There should be a link to that ballot that PJ is showing. And in there, the ballot is tied to your email, which we had on file. And so you will get a 7-digit code that you will then validate yourself. And that is our 2-factor authentication for ensuring that you are who you say you are. And then you should be able to easily vote. But please check your email now or use the QR code that's on the screen. Thank you, PJ. I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, that's perfect. Thanks, Matt. And if anybody is, sorry, hide this here. If anybody is having any issues with that access, we'll have the course of the presentation here. Please use the chat or the volunteer help email at the bottom of the screen here. We'll have a couple people monitoring that email, and hopefully we can get those any technical difficulties sorted out over the next like 20-30 minutes here. Just go back one slide real quick. for the first board meeting of the year here, hopefully starting around 7:30 tonight. This is going to be a fairly short meeting. We're going to have an opportunity to introduce that new board, which would have just been elected in. At that point, our board elects officers, and we're going to be doing that next week on January 12th, next Monday. But we'll have an opportunity for anybody who's interested in running for our officer positions can give a quick, 2 to 5 minute intro of themselves and a little bit of what they're thinking for the next year as an opportunity just to give a little bit of exposure to everybody here tonight. A couple of other things coming up soon here. Next, not this Wednesday, but the following Wednesday, the 14th. Everybody should have received an email from Bill about volunteer training. That'll be a great opportunity to kind of step back, look at some of the big kind of concepts of the organization, of our main talking points, of our main legislative priorities, and start to make sure everybody's speaking the same language and kind of understanding how all these bits and pieces fit together within the organization. The 19th, tentatively, we need the new board to kind of come together and decide this for sure. But we could be looking at a potential strategic planning session, and we'll keep everybody noticed with that. And then at the end of the month, we're going to have a in-person 2026 all volunteer kind of social kickoff, just to get together, celebrate, spend some time together. Again, if we're not having fun through this whole process, then we're doing something wrong here. As Matt said, there's 2 QR codes here. The top one is the ballot, the RCV ballot. So if you, with your phone, are able to select that or punch in the link above, then that should bring you to your RCV ballot. You'll need your email that the email was initially used to send the link to. You'll use that to get a code to plug in. And then once you're in the ballot, you'll see all 11 candidates. You rank as many of those candidates as you want. You're welcome to fill out all 11 of them. You're not obligated to fill out all 11 of them. That's kind of how a typical RCV ballot works. Some of these ballots could have like 40 people, and you wouldn't have to fill out all 40 necessarily, but you have that level of flexibility. And then when we're done tonight, the QR code on the bottom here, we'll view the results, and we'll do that together as well. As a recap, part of the meeting tonight, this is going to be our kind of our guide, our roadmap. So we're going to be using this, looking at kind of growth and our supporters, looking at fundraising and operations, legislative affairs, candidates, events, checking on our communications, and then ending with partnerships as we start to look ahead. So this is kind of where we were at the beginning of last year. We were actually in a really interesting spot as an organization. We had a fairly small group of active volunteers at that point. A lot of them, not everybody, but a lot of them were board members, and most of those people were wearing multiple hats within the organization. They were a lot of doing board member responsibilities, county lead responsibilities, committee lead responsibilities, and obviously this wasn't we needed to do something differently. So the strategy that we started to do over the course of the last year was expand our leadership team horizontally, where we start to pull out our county leads from the board, where we start to pull out our committees separate from the board as well. And as we continue to move ahead here, we'll look at growing our county leads. But then as growth continues, we can start to look at these coordinator roles, whether it's on the outreach side or the volunteer side or the event side. And maybe the shuffles over time, maybe these maybe there's more coordinator roles. This will flex as we see need moving ahead here. But then all of these relate back to the central committees and to the board. All of this was an attempt to bring better coordination to our efforts so that we're doing less work in silos individually. And so that a committee and a local team would start to work together on different efforts as opposed to one or the other taking sole responsibility for something. Sorry, the light. Oh my gosh. Sorry, that's really annoying. There we go. That's going to happen again at some point. Sorry. We also, we're doing this to build our leadership team. We needed to grow that team and expand it out horizontally. We wanted to share workloads. As we do that, many hands make light work. And as we look ahead, we are starting to pull apart these different responsibilities, and I think we want to do more of that in the coming year. Many of the people running for the board tonight are actually new county lead roles within the organization. And so as they join, take that next step onto the board, hopefully we then start to find the next tier of leadership after them to start filling in the county lead roles and also the coordinator roles. So this idea of kind of growing out and up as we go here will be part of the next steps, I believe. Looking at our state, we do now have 10 county leads across the state, with our latest county lead just officially joining with us in Worcester County. Chase Phillips has a growing team in Worcester. And of the 10, 7 of our county leads were all new county leads this year. That did not start the year that way. So it was nice to get a lot of new leadership into the organization for these roles. 3 of these counties were added over the course of the year. And so we did grow from 7 county leads last year to 10 this year, which was a good growth. Nationally, when we step back, Ford is now in 32 states across the country. They're starting to organize now into different clusters, with Maryland now being in among the more advanced states, kind of the states that have taken some of those next steps, and tracking on different metrics as far as volunteers or leadership teams. Maryland is ranked now among the top 5 for county leads, fundraising, and supporter growth, which are all really great things for us. We meet with the national team on a regular basis, meet with the other county leads on a regular basis. And we just recently had a meeting with some of the Mid-Atlantic teams where we were all able to get on a call together. All of this was part of the start of a 5-year outlook that we started to put into place this year. This block of orange in 2026 is coming up onto a critical milestone this year. It's something that we've tracked from the very beginning of this organization. We've always said that Forward needs to be something different than just an advocacy group. We need to be a political party because of how intertwined these systems are and how much work there is to do. We need a seat at the table if we're going to bring the types of changes and reforms that Forward wants to do. So ballot access is either a very slow process when you're out every weekend with a volunteer team collecting 100 signatures at a time, or it's a very expensive process. But you can do it much faster if you hire an organization to go out and get signatures. So that is part of our strategy. Once we get ballot access, then we have time to maintain it. We've got a 4-year window where we can maintain that, with lots of opportunities to use that ballot access effectively in the meantime over the courses of ideally 27, 28, 29 as we head into 30. It is tied to the gubernatorial election cycle. So this year, being a gubernatorial election, if we have all of our ballots in hand the day after the election and turn those into Board of Elections, we maximize our window for how much time we have as a ballot with our ballot access. A couple of these numbers are key ones to be tracking along with. These three numbers here in purple, the 4,000 supporters, 6,000, 8,000. We should, if we're right at the beginning of the year here, we should hopefully be tracking these and be somewhere around the 5,000 mark. I'll explain why more in the next slides here, but getting to this 8,000 has been kind of a milestone that we're looking at as a route to get ballot access. And this was kind of the rationale that we had initially developed for this. What we need to probably take a fresh look at these numbers and make sure the percentages of what we think are feasible hit rates are for a fundraising effort. But these numbers, our 8,000 number here is tied to potential fundraising effort to get that ballot access. We know it's about $100,000 to do this effort. And if we can grow our network large enough, then we can ask for smaller donation amounts and spread that out across a larger support network. And, you know, we'll tweak these numbers, whether it's truly like an 8,000 person target or a 9,000 or a 10,000 person target. I think we'll reevaluate this beginning part of the year here. But this is kind of the thought process. If we can build a maintainable network and then fundraise from that network of supporters to get ballot access, then we can start to focus on maintaining the network and growing to what we need is about 30,000 registered forward members to maintain ballot access on a regular basis. And so that's when we would start to use those next 4 years to run viable candidates, focus in on local priorities, and pursue our legislative reforms through strategic partnerships across the state. And so as a check-in of where we are, we track prospects and supporters in two technically separate buckets, but in reality, they almost function the same way. They come in from two different sources for us. Supporters tend to come through our network and our tools, and prospects tend to come in through National's tools. But if we put those together, we're somewhere around 4,500 supporters. And so we are tracking close to that 5,000 target that we should hopefully be at right now. There's more work to do though. Over the next several months, we do need to get to that 8,000 range, 9,000 range. So we do have a next big push to do as far as outreach and engagement and being in our communities and talking with our neighbors. But I think we're feeling good about the growth that we are doing. We did have 22% growth within our supporter network over the last year, which is good, steady growth. And I think one of the more promising things for me is our active volunteers grew dramatically over the last year. We had about 7 to 10 truly active volunteers at the end of last year, this time last year, and now we're up to 63 active volunteers, and that's really amazing. These are people working on a regular basis, emailing candidates, researching, producing content for us. A lot of hard work that's happening out there across many committees and local teams. We're really proud of the team that has been built up over the last year here. This is a growth model that we've been using in the back of our heads for almost anything we do. This is the crossing the chasm methodology. At some point, we will be needing to break across the early adopters and into the early majority. We do still think we are definitely within the early adopter phase right now. Everybody on this call, most everybody on this call is an early adopter, I would say. We do have a couple of the founding board members on the call tonight. Those would have been our innovators. Those are the people who got us started when there was nothing. And then by the time I joined, I would say I was an early adopter. Anybody else on here is probably an early adopter. But then there's this big gap that ends up happening until we break into mainstream. And it is really hard to cross this chasm into the early majority. It's going to take multi-pronged effort. It's going to take coordinated efforts. And we'll have to test and evaluate as we go to see what's working, what's not. So there'll be a lot of testing and as we move ahead in the coming year here. But then I think once we get over into that early majority, that's when mainstream access starts to happen. People start to understand our name recognition a little bit more. We might have candidates at that point that are forward aligned or forward candidates if we get our ballot access at that point. So there is this kind of tipping point that is hopefully coming, perhaps over the next year, perhaps the following. But for us to get to that early majority, we do need to get to a critical mass within our early adopters, which is probably that 8 to 10,000 range of supporters. Looking at fundraising for the last year, we did not do a big targeted concerted effort on fundraising. We let this be a little bit more organic than in past years. Past years, we had put a lot of emphasis into fundraising, and I think we did it a lot. So with a small group. And so this year we actually stepped back from that strategy a little bit, saying, let's build the network, let's build our teams out, let's build our infrastructure out, let's step back from fundraising, let that happen a little bit more organically. We actually still hit pretty similar numbers as last year, just through that organic approach. But as we look into the new year, we will have a more fundraiser targeted approach. We'll probably tie that more to events. We'll probably target it more towards specific efforts along the way. So we will kind of build it into our programming over the coming year here. And then when we get to Q3 this year, we will have a very strategic, hopefully, statewide effort for that ballot access fundraising effort. On the operations side, a lot of work came into the organization right from the get-go. Right as we had our new board, we had a strategic planning session, and we immediately started to just regroup, consolidate, so that we can move ahead very strategically. We had grown at one point into about 9 committees. We actually stepped back and consolidated that as one of the very first steps this past year. And we consolidated that into these 5 committees here. Almost everything we do as an organization could fall into one of these 5 categories. And that's how we organize a lot of our updates and tracking across the organization. We also early on last year stepped back and codified our organizational platform. This was a way to get us and all of our team members, as we knew we wanted to grow this year, speaking the same language. At one point, we were starting to mix and match priorities and goals and strategies and pillars. And this was a way just to come back together, agree on some core language, so that we could move ahead together a little bit tighter. The principles of conduct is really how we conduct ourselves in an outward-facing way with the organization. And then our 5 legislative priorities, the first 4 being the voting electoral reforms that we talk about so often. The 5th one is really exciting. That's where we want to be heading ultimately, where we start to focus on these localized community priorities, knowing that community can scale. It could be a neighborhood association group. It could be a town or a county. It could be the entire state of Maryland. and then you listen to that community, find out what the priorities are, and that really gets us to our community up approach. And that is what we really think makes Ford different than the top-down approach that we see so often from the other major parties. This was a key step that we did early in last year. We created a director's pledge for our board of directors. This is modeled almost exactly off of our candidate pledge that we have all of our candidates review and sign. We use this and the candidate pledge as a way to hold ourselves individually and as an organization accountable. And this is so that we're all, again, speaking similar language and understanding kind of the code of conduct that we're all expected to uphold. We did a major refresh. Well, we did a major scrap and redo of our website over the course of this year. The old website was a good, sturdy platform for us for a long time, but it had grown very organically over time, and we needed an opportunity to step back, refresh, consolidate our storytelling and our messaging. And so big thanks here. Courtney Hart and Pete Oliver Kruger really led this effort and did an amazing job. This is the backbone of all of our communication, ends up flowing in and through our website. So big shout outs there. From a systems perspective, we spent a lot of time this year and are still continuing to evolve and grow these things, but access and security control into our systems and our networks, organizing how we put together our information and store information, and then organizationally, how we group our teams was a consolidated effort to make sure that that's all understandable of what group falls under what committees. We built some communication tools and started to utilize and test different tools there, building templates. Some of that was for communication side of things, where standardizing emails, but also some of graphic tools as well. We built a team directory. We have an internal team intranet now for shared resources for our volunteer team. And we have a volunteer help desk that can be utilized at any point for any and all questions related to Ford Party. So internally, we looked at our election system, what we're going to be going through tonight. Very early last year, we decided that we wanted to move towards a split term, a split 2-year term. And that way we can always ensure that at least half the board remains onto the following year, bringing continued leadership and history and knowledge as a new half of the board kind of grows and evolves with the organization. We clarified and set and updated criteria for board member nominees. We updated some of these procedures, and we established the role of member, and that's what we're going to be doing tonight as everybody participates in our election. On the legislative affairs side, we're very active. 2004, we tracked and testified on 4 bills during the state legislative session, which was great. Those were all election and voting reform related bills, very much in line with our mission and values. This year we had expanded capacity with a growing team. This year we were able to track 42 bills and testify on 11 of them. And beyond kind of our core legislative priorities, there were some that we were able to connect into, such as the SB 0066, which was starting to look at providing elderly and disabled people better accommodations at polling stations. We wanted to make it easier for people to interact with our election system, and we considered a lot of different bills during that process. One of those bills we were openly opposed to, provided testimony for, both in the House and the Senate. This was a bill that was going to start to restrict and potentially block the formation of new political parties through a new technicality in the code language. This was something that we opposed throughout the entire legislative session. Even when it passed, we continued our efforts by sending an open letter to Governor Moore and publicizing that letter. And we also had reached out to the Attorney General's office, the State Attorney General's office, so that we could get interpretation from their office as well. Moving into this year, we do have plans to dig into this. We've been meeting with the Board of Elections throughout the course of the year, specifically on this issue. We've developed a good working relationship with the Board of Elections through that process. There are some administrative things that we think we can do right away to curtail some of this, and we also think there's some potential paths forward, potentially even legislatively, that we are excited to pursue. Yeah, Matt.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. There's some questions in the chat about whether or not we should close the voting at this point. And I just wanted your thoughts on that.
Oh, because it's 7:30.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Why don't we go ahead and do that? I'll go ahead and close it right now, and we'll come back to it right after. Okay, close voting. Thank you. Close voting. Great, and then we'll come back and take a look in just a few. We have continued our relationship with RCV Maryland and the strategic partnerships through that, working with Represent Women, Fair Vote, Rank the Vote, League of Women Voters. These are all organizations that we have developed personal relationships with through RCV Maryland, but also kind of independently collaborating and coordinating on different efforts now, which is really exciting. Early in 2025, we co-hosted an event with RCV Maryland. They had 12 events simultaneously on National RCV Day across the state. We co-hosted one of those events in Annapolis. It was a coffee event. It was really fun. We got kicked out of Starbucks, even though we were handing out Starbucks gift cards. That's okay. But this year we're going to be doing it again on the 23rd of this month. And we're hoping to host up to 4 or 5 events this year, again, with expanded growth that we've had, expanded capacity in different localities. We're able to offer more to our partnership with them now. We will continue to pursue this bill that passed last year and work with the State Board of Elections to get updated reforms for this. We've been working throughout the year, reaching out to the different legislators, meeting with them, building relationships over the course of the year, emailing, meeting. This is an important part of building these trust relationships with Democrats, with Republicans, and hopefully it'll set us up for continued success as we move ahead legislatively. We were very active with RCV advocacy across the state. We attended testimony. We participated in email and phone banks drives. But we had team members that went out and participated in the strategic door knocking sessions. We reached out to different legislators, both locally and statewide. We actually hosted a 200-person RCV panel. Roseanne Wade hosted this event, had 200-person audience focused around RCV. It was it's a really exciting and probably our best attended event ever. So hats off to Roseanne for that. through all this, we did have a win at the end where Greenbelt had a referendum with ranked choice voting on the ballot, and that passed by a large majority. We held a couple of sessions with related to open primaries this year. The first one was with 4 state delegates. That was a bipartisan group. Again, part of that relationship building, but these were also people that we were aligning with on other issues, and we took a shot in the dark a little bit around open primaries. This is a pretty contentious issue for anybody in a seated office right now who's connected with one party or the other. Any one of these 4 delegates probably could be ostracized from their parties for just meeting and having this conversation with us. But they were all very brave and joined that conversation and participated in a really productive way. From that, we had a second session where one of those delegates reached out to us who wanted to propose a bill this coming session that will be released any day now. That delegate asked us to help build some of the language for the bill. And through that process, we wanted to reach out to more organizations, bring in a broader voice. So we hosted an event with 7 organizations and 2 of these delegates to build some consolidated consensus language for the bill. We have new priority leads within the Legislative Affairs Committee. These are going to be our point people for these different initiatives as we move ahead here. Again, this is going to be leadership spread horizontally. And we're really excited. These have been really active team members, and we're excited to have them in these new roles. Mid-cycle redistricting came to Maryland over the last several weeks, months. This has kind of been building up, but it's come to a head right before Christmas, where the governor announced that they would be pursuing mid-cycle redistricting to combat a lot of what was happening at a national scale. We've opposed this from the very beginning and came together and put out a official statement about that opposition, thinking that it was a losing strategy for Maryland voters in the end. And then when they said they were going to be moving ahead, regardless of all the feedback they received at the testimonies, we stepped back and we tested a few options internally, different maps, and then ultimately came back to this 2021 map that was done through a proper independent redistricting process. That commission had 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans, 2 independents. They spent the proper amount of time to build consensus, held workshops, held public meetings, got example maps from people. They went through the proper process, and they're not trying to rush it like the administration is trying to do right now. So that's the map that we defaulted back to as a recommendation over the last couple weeks here. And finally, as we look ahead, we know that we have some ranked choice voting bills coming into the State House over the next couple weeks here. We know there's this open primaries bill that we'll be tracking along with. There's a bill that we think is going to be reintroduced this year about ballot petition modernization. This is digital signatures. This should help our process towards ballot access. There's a continued vacancy reform bill that got really good traction last year. We're hoping that this could be a year that it passes. This is how we fill vacancies in the State House. There's a debate that's supposed to be access bill, getting candidates equal and access to our public debates, and having funding for Maryland public television tied to creating this equal access. And then we also think there's going to be a bill proposed that we've talked with the delegate on regarding a required conversation that the State House needs to do in the next several years here about a 2030 constitutional convention. The convention itself is not mandatory, but the conversation that the State House has is. So this is the first year that this should come up through this bill, and hopefully it'll start this conversation over the next several years here. Sorry, guys, I know this is a lot of information. We're just about towards the end here, though. Candidate-wise, we supported 4 candidates. Um, 2 of those 4 candidates won their elections. This was a local election cycle this year. So we're really proud of all of these candidates and their efforts, really great campaigns from all of them. James Cole was the second time running with our support, and he won his reelection. And then Harry Huntley was also running for reelection in the city of Annapolis and won his election as well. That puts our total win rate up to 31, having supported 13 candidates so far, and 4 wins from that group so far. We do have a very active team, candidates team working right now. So this is a group that is vetting or researching, vetting, and meeting with candidates on a very regular basis. Over the last year, we've met with 23 candidates. We currently have 11 of those candidates in our review processing queue at different stages of that queue. And we have been focusing on a couple of key jurisdictions, mainly because some of these are considered more of the purple districts, more of the moderate districts, and also higher population. So these, with limited resources, this is kind of the bang for the buck that we've been focusing on, but we've been making good progress through those, so we could be quickly expanding into other areas as well, and we're excited to do so. We currently have 2 candidates listed on our shortlist, and really proud to be supporting Kevin Ford and Rob Daniels. As we move into the new year here, we'll soon be moving into formal endorsements. We'll step back, reevaluate the rest of the field, and see what endorsements we want to do moving ahead. Busy year for events. These are events that we were either hosting, co-hosting, or co-promoting. There were 58 events that kind of fell into this category. Very busy throughout the entire year, and a wide range, ranging from kind of social side of things, more advocacy side of things for other events, and some just for outreach and engagement within our communities. Communications wise, we had a total of 252 social media posts this past year. That we've seen steady growth over Instagram and Twitter. And then we also did a quick analysis and breakdown of these categories of the content itself. 31% of the content being around voting election reforms, and then I got out of order here, but the holidays being the lowest at only 2%. In the past, we had actually done more holiday announcements, and this year we kind of focused away more towards our core values and priorities and legislative efforts. We'll continue to evaluate and analyze these things, but looking at the range of views and interactions that these different posts have, this big central post here was a state legislative session, and had the lowest, not the lowest, but of the ones here, just to give a range. We need to find a way to bring local and county and statewide politics more to the forefront. Our national politics obviously dominate the headlines, so we need to find a way to get our Maryland supporters connected more with our local and statewide efforts here. We did make a concerted effort to start to interact with local issues. And so we were finding a lot of articles throughout the state and reposting those just to help inform people of local things happening where they may not be following it themselves. We're starting to look more at education, and I think education will be a big part of our strategy as we head into the new year. What is gerrymandering? How is it done? For example, this post here is a good example of working with partner organizations. When we start to co-post these things together, we start to reach broader audiences. This one here that was a co-sponsored event with Indivisible Baltimore. Had 35 interactions, 1,800 views. We start to get into those higher view rates when we start to cross over with our strategic partners. This one down here was a really simple post from one of our candidates. She posted it and tagged us, and we rode on her coattails to get 2,500 views on that one. So some of these we'll continue to learn from these trends, but some of these posts, when they're local, when they're things that people are focused on and concentrated on, they start to increase. This was our best post of the year, and it was a candidate. 25 shares and 303 interactions, over 11,000 views though. So this was people connect with people, and we want to continue to follow some of those trends as we move ahead here. I think this is the final slide. Sorry we ran over here, guys. These are our partnerships that we've been developing over the course of the last year here. These are organizations that we feel we align with from a values mission perspective. All of these organizations are now listed on our website, and they're tagged as either a pro-democracy partner or a community up partner. We want these organizations to interact with each other too. So we're going to be building tools on our website where they can kind of co-share events that they're all hosting and start to co-mingle a lot of these organizations moving ahead into the new year. Okay, we will pause there for a second. That was a lot. But that ends the annual recap for 2025. Now looking ahead, we will bring up our election. Again, this was the first year that we had a competitive election, and we had 25 members cast their votes this year. I think we can now go in and should be able to view results. Okay. So these are our results for our 2026 board elections. And we had 11 candidates running. We've got 9 positions open right now. And so as we move ahead, we think there's a lot of opportunities for either to reevaluate the size of our board. We also think there's opportunities to engage everybody in new and exciting ways in the new year. So I want to thank everybody who ran for the board this year for stepping up into that role and wanting to do this. Congratulations to our new board members that are joining. It's really exciting to have this continued growth, a new grouping of leadership kind of stepping in here. So we're very lucky and proud to have all of you. So thank you all for running, and thank you all for voting and participating as members this year. I will pause there for a second, and we'll stop the recording and we'll answer any questions. Thank you.